What do we have tonight? This is Joko, and I'm coming to you from Mandalay, Myanmar, where we have some very significant political events going on, and which means that, and I have some time, so I thought I would provide this service of doing one of the rare video feedback reports on a random essay I found on Facebook. Deemed the simplest task one of the Cambridge books. It's a multi-graphic question with a table and 2 pie charts, and that's it. It's being brought to us tonight from Mima Allah Mohammed, probably from Pakistan. I'm going to guess Egypt. Excuse me. Oh yes, went to university in Egypt. Well, all right, so it should be simple, right? Right. Okay, sidebar. Okay, some basics about the Task 1 academic. Look at the band descriptors. Read them and understand what they say. Because you'll find, particularly in task achievement, these certain words repeated over and over. Okay, covers the requirements of the task, addresses the requirements of the task, fully satisfies the requirements of the task. Requirements of the task. What are they talking about? What are these requirements of the task? Well, every task 1 has the same set of instructions. And if you look at them, there you will find the requirements of the task. Where else would you find them? But in the instructions. It tells you to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Now, in that sentence, you will find the requirements of the task. And they are the 4 verbs that you find, that you see there. Find them. What are the 4 verbs? They are. Oh. Ah. No. I need to click. That's what I need to do. Click. Well, okay, we got some arrows here. Here's our task that was presented. And the 4 arrows point to the 4 verbs in that part. Summarize. Right? Summarize. Okay. That means to take the most important information and present it in as few words as possible. So anytime that you are using a bunch of extra words that you don't need, you are not summarizing. And so you're doing the opposite of what it's asking. You know, selecting and reporting. Selecting is the key. It says the main features, not all of the information. If it's all of the information in your report, then you're not selecting anything, are you? No. To select means to leave stuff out. Okay? When you go and you buy tomatoes, do you buy all the tomatoes? No. You're going to select the right ones. How do you know what those are? Well, that's a whole other lesson. But selection means leaving some information out, as does summarizing. Reporting accurately, okay, and make comparisons. That's a requirement of the task. Okay, now I call this one the easiest of them, and here you see it. It's statistically it doesn't have a lot of information. You got your table up there that's got 2 data points, and then you got a chart or 2 pie graphs with 5 each. That's 10. So it's 12 data points on the whole thing. Oh, that would be easy just to write everything, to report all of the information. If you do that, you are not satisfying the requirements of the task. But I'm being more thorough. No, you are being overly thorough. It wants you to summarize and select, not report everything. Because if you report everything, then it's not the main features, is it? It's all the features. Okay. Now, one thing about pie graphs, do remember that pie graphs represent all of a whole. So those numbers, even though you don't see it anywhere, I was impressed that our candidate tonight recognized that always with a pie graph, the numbers represent percentages, okay? Percentage of the whole. It can also represent a pizza. What else do we need to know? Don't report everything, as I said. And this one would be very tempting to do so. Okay, so now look at this and look at ways to combine the categories. Okay, so there's nothing to combine in the table, but in the pie graph, yes, it's quite easy to combine, and you do need some basic math skills here. All right. So before the refurbishment, how many people were unhappy? Well, you're going to take dissatisfied and very dissatisfied and add them together. And when you do that, what do? You get 50%. Well, that's a nice number to be able to show you know how to represent, to paraphrase. That's perfect. They designed it that way. There's a reason why the dissatisfied people equal 40 plus 10 equals 50. You can combine the other half, 45, less than half. Okay? Look at the after refurbishment chart. Yeah? 35 and 40, add those together, 75. Those are people who are satisfied and very satisfied. But very satisfied is still satisfied. Okay? That's 3/4. These aren't accidents that these numbers are this way, folks. You have to combine the categories of data in a logical way to find these second level comparisons. And that will get you the Juju task achievement points. All right, so, yeah. So, what happened? Presenting change by more than just numbers. Let's go back and look at the table. No, the visitors went from 74,000 to 92,000. Okay, so immediately in my head, I'm going, okay, 18. So if you add 18 to 74, what do you get? 92. So the number of visitors increased by 25%. That's a nice number to be able to report. It went from 74 to 92,000. Great, you can read a table. If you are able to say it increased by 1/4 or 125%, and that is a more thorough, it shows that you're able to use carrier nouns and look for that kind of thing. Quarters, halves, 3/4. Remember? Okay, now, the other thing that you find when you look in the band descriptors is that the word overview is repeated many times in task achievement. And there's a reason for that, because it's the most important part of your essay. How would you do with your overview? Okay, it's noted throughout the band descriptors. Okay, it should cover as much of the data as possible in as few words as possible. Look for overarching trends. So, what do we find when we look at this? Okay, and before the refurbishment, you got, okay, dissatisfied and very dissatisfied. That's half the people, less than half. And then after it, oh my God, 3/4 of the people are happy. Only 20% are unhappy. Well, that's a big change. And by presenting it, that's an obvious thing. And with the other one, there's really only one. Okay? And then you need to use your overview as your outline for your body paragraphs. Your outline should include two ideas. Your overview should include two main ideas, main trends or differences, and not the highest and the lowest. Okay? And then use those two ideas in your overview to organize your body paragraphs in the order that they are in the overview. So, for example, if I were to write this overview, I would say it like this. Overall, museum guests were significantly more satisfied with their visits after the improvements. Okay, remember, I've already had an introductory paragraph where I've said, talking about improvements. Museum guests, no numbers, no ostentatious, outrageous words like, overwhelmingly, or just significantly more satisfied with their visits after the improvements. Museum attendance also saw an increase. Okay, short, to the point, and it covers the maximum amount of information in as few words as possible, which is what you're supposed to do. And it makes comparisons. Okay, let's have our candidates. Here it is. Introduction and overview. Oh, I'm in Chrome. It's not going to talk, is it? No, it's not. And I didn't set it up to talk. Oh, okay. Okay, so if we read, after reading this, we found he wrote 179 words. The longest sentence was 29 words. Is that 29 or 20? 29. Or is that 20? I can't read it. Shortest sentence was 10 words. Okay. You use the word after 4 times. Subsequent. Number. Okay, people. Anyway, this is from wordcounter.net. It's a good wordcounter.net. Wordcounter.net. I'm not getting paid by them. I'm just trying to make sure the subtitles show correctly. Okay, what do we got? Now, when I give feedback, I use a color code, which you see at the top there, which is corresponding to the different band descriptors. So when you see this color, all right, let me explain. Okay. Okay. Definite article the. Have we seen the table before? No. How do we know there's a table there? There's no. We don't know that there's. Anyway, I'm against the use of the in the introduction of a task 1 because ideally you're writing it as if the person reading it can't see the graph and the table. So if they can't see it, they don't know what the table refers to. Compares the number of people visited. Missing a relative pronoun there, maybe? People who visited. People who visited or people visiting, one or the other. Ashdown Museum. During 2 periods, a year before and after it was renewed. Renewed is not a good synonym for refurbished. Now, this is one of 3 times in this essay that you misuse the connector while. Okay? While is a good connector, however, it must be preceding a clause, okay, which is the dependent clause of the main clause. I know that's a lot of grammar words, but there has to be 2 thoughts in a while. It's while is happening, is also happening. And they have to contrast, they have to be different. Okay? While the pie charts indicates, okay, charts is plural, needs to be indicate the results of questionnaires. Do we know it's a questionnaire? No, we know it's a survey. A survey and a questionnaire are not exactly the same thing. Questionnaires regarding the visitor's response. The visitor's response, their feelings, okay, towards the renovation. No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. Okay, while the pie charts, right, the table compares the number of people who visited. Right, anyway, that's the table. While the pie charts. Okay, if you had just put a comma at renewed, then while would have been fine. Because while needs to be part of 2 ideas. Regarding towards the renovation. No, it is not about the renovation. It's their response to the visit. Okay, it says, the charts show the results of surveys asking visitors how satisfied they were with their visit. See it up there? Not with the renovations. So the questionnaire is not questioning their response to the renovation. Okay, I'm saying that 3 times. Get it? It's about the museum, not about the renovations. How do they know what renovations happened? They don't know. So you've misrepresented the question. And here's your overview. Overall, it can be observed that the number of sightseers, okay, 2, not of, in the year before renovation, yeah, except that you've already used renovation, outnumbered after it was renovated. Whoa, very awkward. Now, blue represents coherence and cohesion. That is what we call incoherent, meaning that it doesn't make sense. So you have to sit there and think about it and try to figure out what you're saying. And that slows you down, and yeah. Outnumbered. That's not the correct use of outnumbered. Yeah, after it was renovated. Yeah, hard to understand that. Additionally, before majority, you need the. There's only one majority, so it always takes the definite article. The vast majority of visitors. Why? Why use vast majority? They did not become more satisfied than before. Okay? That implies that the same people visited is fine. It is unclear, however, the language errors that you make in the overview turn what would have been a fine overview of the main features and makes it confusing to the point where it's unclear. And that's where you'll find problems in the manuscript. Okay, BP 1 and 2. So the first one I'm expecting to be about the table, and the second one I'm expecting to be about the pie charts. But no! Instead, you broke it up into positive and negative responses. The good response. Okay. Again, don't use the here, and good. Be really wary of using good in any IELTS writing. It's so vague and such a basic bit of vocabulary. What do you mean? The good response. The portion, proportion. We use portions with food. The portion of satisfied people grew from 30 to 40%, respectively. A very much the incorrect use of respectively. Respectively, look it up. It's not that. And here now, once again, we have while being used with just one clause. While the number of people with high level of gratification. Don't try so hard to paraphrase. The high level of gratification considerably rose by 20. While the number of people. Okay, see, that's what confuses me is what's while doing there. Rose considerably by 20%. And, okay, the number of, if you had written the proportion of people who had high levels of gratification rose considerably rose by 20%. Period. While, or comma, while, 35% of the total visitors become, once again, we don't use become here, became very satisfied instead of 15%. Ooh, gosh. Oh, that's just so incoherent. I really don't know how to advise how to fix that. Turning to the dissatisfaction part of the survey. Survey is not divided into parts based on satisfied and dissatisfied. That's the results. Percentage of those who were dissatisfied experienced a remarkable decline after the refurbishment, dropping from 40 to only 15%. That's pretty good, except for the only part. But the people who were dissatisfied needs to include also the people who were very dissatisfied. I'm dissatisfied. I'm also very dissatisfied. Okay? So the people who were dissatisfied was not 40, it was 50. You have to include very dissatisfied. And then of course, instead of 15 and 5, we went from 50 to 20. And, never start a sentence with and. The percentage of visitors who were dissatisfied. Okay, wait a minute. You had dissatisfied, who were dissatisfied, and dissatisfied. You meant to say very dissatisfied. Have. Okay, fine. Have after removal from 10 to 5%. And once again, you use while incorrectly for the third time with just one idea. While those who did not provide any response were immutable. Immutable means incapable of changing, like a statue. Okay, it's the danger with using synonyms. You're trying to use high-level vocabulary that does not fit in the context of this writing. They were not immutable. Immutable means unchangeable. And their percentage was similar at 5% in both years. No, it wasn't similar, it was the same. Similar means close to being the same, but not quite. So, yeah. And you know what? You've included all the data, right? Did you not have? Well, pretty much. So you have not summarized. You have reported everything. Common mistake and a big danger in an essay like this, in a graphic like this, because it's so small. This is not the main information. The fact that 5%, well, first, 5% being no response is not significant information in either one. The fact that it didn't change is not the main features in any way. Oh, well, Mr. Joko, you're so good at this. Well, why don't you tell us how you would write it? Well, here I have my sample report on this. There are 2 pie graphs. There are 2 pie charts and a table which provide information on visitation and levels of satisfaction for the Ashdown Museum. Note, the sentence includes a relative clause. Okay, there are 2 pie charts and a table, which, this is a complex sentence right off the bat, and a good way to start a task 1, because you knock that out of your different varieties of complex sentences right from the beginning. Okay, I'll let you look at that. The overview is the same. This is how I organize the body paragraphs. Looking at visitor satisfaction surveys from before the museum's refurbished, it can be seen that fully half of the responses were negative, 50%, with 10% registering very dissatisfied. By contrast, comparison. A year after the improvements, positive responses had increased to 3/4. Yeah, 40 plus 35 is 75%. Through 3/4 of the whole, outnumbering the negative by more than 3 to 1. Another comparison. While, and I tried to use the same vocabulary that you did to show you how it can be used correctly. While those who were very unhappy with the visited halved, okay, from 10% to 5%, comma, those who were very satisfied more than doubled, growing from 15 to 35. This is the main information reported and compared. And you know what you forgot to do in your entire essay? You never mentioned the table. You gave didn't report on the information on the table at all, except in your overview. And you have to. Okay? And now I make comparisons between the two. Along with the overall increase in satisfaction, the total visitors post-refurbishment saw a significant bump as well. So 92% is a 25% increase over 74%. I could have said a quarter, but either way, you got to include the table. Now, you asked for band descriptors. Oh, I normally do not, you asked for a score. I normally do not do this. There's no winning here. No winning for me and no winning for you for me to do this. I only look at 5, 6, and 7. And here we have the, starting with the task response. problem is that your overview, although the information was chosen appropriately, it was not clear. So now, it clearly was the overview, but the overview was not clear. Clearly, that's what the overview was trying. So when you look at 5 and 6, and it talks about present an overview with information appropriately selected, yes. But in 5, it says, right, recounts detail mechanically. No, we didn't do that. With no clear overview. Okay, so there's nothing that's clearly the overview, or is the overview not clear? How do you read that? So it's probably a 6. It's a 6. But it is not an overview it is not presents a clear overview. It's not a clear overview. It clearly is the overview. But the main trends are, and it isn't, yeah. They are the main trends, you got that, but you just got to make it clear. Could be a 7 with better language. Oh, task response. Excuse me, C and C. Your use of cohesive devices is fine. However, the organization of the paragraphs isn't logical. So you might be a 7, but probably a 6. Yes, you use sufficient range of vocabulary. Yes, it's flexible. Yes, you use some less comical, less lexical items and stuff. Probably, yeah, 7 for lexical response. However, in grammar, frequent error-free sentences. No, I'm not seeing that. There's little grammar mistakes in every sentence. And that could bring you down to a 6 in grammar. Not all the way down to the 5. But, you know, we're looking at 5 or 6, 6 or 7, 7, 6. So either way, it's a 6. 6.5 at most.
And we're done.